Hello, friends. Today, I would like to chat about how different people get their information from different places. And I'm going to give two examples one personal experience, and another was a review I saw, I think on TripAdvisor, of a rodeo at a town near me. And I'm just trying to highlight that perhaps it would be wise for you and me to really think about the worldview, the perspective that other people have, the lens through which they're looking at things. And I'm as these both examples are just times that I'm astounded that I wouldn't have even guessed. I couldn't fathom that anybody would come from that place or that position, but they do. And since I'm not a news watcher or that kind of thing, I'm just at a I don't know disadvantage, advantage, whatever it is. But yeah, these stood out to me, and wanted to see what you thought about these. So the first one, and I'll put the TripAdvisor review up on the screen here, and I'm going to read it and just talk about how surprised I am. Okay, so I'm going to go down to yeah. So, except for the racially insensitive, ignorant, and sexist jokes made by the announcer, it was fine. And the jokes about the pandemic were cringeworthy as well. People are dying every day, but clearly this topic was fair game for several pedestrian jokes. Okay, so this was back when the panic was happening. It looks like July of 2020. And these people chose not to, I think they called it sheltering in place, where they like home incarcerate and don't go out because they're scared of stuff. So I mean, more power to, yeah, and I'm going to leave the name, I'm going to blur the name out of here. Um, we'll just call her Karen. I just came up with the name at random. So Karen here is really into the panic. Like she's doesn't like the fact that not everybody is as scared as she is about it, and that they're making jokes. Okay, I get that. I expected that. I've heard that back when this was started. Yeah, I was aware of that going on. Here's the part that I had no clue. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I will often say to somebody, it's a just a running dad joke. When I see somebody who is in my Rocky Mountain state and they are from California or from New York or New Jersey or something like that, I'll say, "Oh, cool. Well, welcome to the United States." Or I'll say, like, "Well, if you ever decide to move to the United States, blah blah blah." And it's just a joke, basically saying that they live in such a far out, um, like Nazi, socialist North Korea type ridiculous place that, well, welcome to the real world is basically what I'm saying. And that's how I always thought about it until I read this review and went, oh my gosh, there's another way of thinking about this. Being I'm from California, I especially enjoyed the clearly racist reference to my state's Mexican, Spanish speaking, undocumented population when he bid us Californians welcome to America. Given that we are in a national crisis concerning discrimination against non whites, this is not funny at all. It's actually pathetic. And then all Coloradians were all branded as potheads. Um, oh my gosh, I had no idea that there would be a way to take these words, welcome to America, welcome to the United States, something like that, as being a racist thing or having to do with Mexicans going to California. Um, well, I didn't even know that. And I've said it to so many people, and I wonder if some of them who got their information sources, if they were on an information island where they're only getting their sources from CNBC, CNN, uh, all the popular legacy uh, media joints. Maybe I've offended people. I had no clue about that. So yeah, that just wow. That was incredible. So that was one example, and then the other was a personal example. I have a for our business. I have a guy who did our digital marketing for us for many years, and I always kind of assumed that he was left leaning, pro state, and then in that category, left leaning. And that was great with me because our business is a gun related business. And I wanted somebody who might have a very different, unique perspective than my biased perspective that's pro gun, pro shooting, pro safety kind of thing. And so I was very happy to have him for many years. And then he got a hold of me. I believe it was in, I don't remember when it was. Um, a few years ago, and he got a hold of me and he said, "I can't believe that I'm asking you this, but I think, do you think maybe I should get a gun to protect my family?" And I thought, huh, I wonder what brought this about. And so I asked him what I ask a lot of people. Well, what is your reasoning for this? Why do you think it might be necessary? Are you thinking more protecting from a grizzly bear attack in the backcountry, or are you thinking that somebody might attack you, another person might attack you, and if so, what kind of scenario do you envision? And I learned from him that he was worried just about how crazy things are in the world right now, and he worried that, in essence, the conservatives might come to his upper middle class subdivision and attack his home. And he didn't put it in those words, but that's essentially what he was saying. And I'm just thinking, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that he would be worried about this." Like, he's a nice guy. I'm sure all of his neighbors of all political stripes, or the really bright ones who aren't into politics, I'm sure they all like the guy. Like, he's really cool. And so I gave him the advice and said, I don't think that that threat, it's none of my business. We each get to come up with our own threat assessments and reasons we might have defensive tools, but I don't really see that as being a reason you would need to do it. Yeah. And so I don't know what decision he ended up making. I gave him more advice on if he's going to, these are some of the considerations. And one of his kids had some emotional, I don't know, depression. Just it was a little bit different kid, and I said, well, that's really important to take into consideration. The chances that people are going to come break into your house in our rural small town community is pretty slim, and the probability is probably much higher that if you have a teenager who's having some issues, that there could be a problem there. So I gave him the advice, and he went on about his day. And it wasn't until over a year after that that I heard what a big deal this was sometime after the, January 6th protests at the government's, um, temple in DC, and it was such a big deal to him. He thought that Republicans were coming for him, that he needed a gun to protect himself from the protesters, because it could spread from DC to our little rural mountain town that is so safe and everybody, well, most people get along with each other. But that was a real concern of his. And if you had asked me when I hung up the phone with him, if you had asked me, why is he worried about it? That January 6th protest would not been in my top 500 things I would have thought of. It just would not have entered my mind. It wouldn't have. I didn't see it as a significant thing. It was just, yeah, there's another protest and not a big deal. And to him it was. So between Karen, who I talked about at first, and my friend who I talked about now, and I think he was frightened enough, he and his family moved to Europe. That's where they live now. He's no longer my digital guy. He's moved on to different things, in a safer place away from scary America. And I know many of you in my audience probably share that for maybe different reasons, but you might share his perspective that there are better places to be than the United States government's jurisdiction. But yeah, I just thought I'd bring those up. Those were interesting. It's encouraging me as I go out and talk to people. If I'm talking to a conservative, they probably only know what they've been fed by Fox News and their little inner circle of people who are doing the confirmation bias thing, and they're just all agreeing, "Oh my gosh, the Mexicans are coming up across the border, and at the same time, somehow they're taking all of our jobs and they're lazy on welfare." So I'm not sure how that works, but oh, and even more importantly, a big portion of the undocumented people coming across the southern, government's line in the sand are the Arabs, the Muslim Arabs, and they are going to hurt us all. And that's a constant diet that many of the people I know are fed on, and that's just what they believe. They don't realize that there are different perspectives. And then the same thing I have to think about with my Democrat friends that they probably are getting this information like the 2 examples I gave you, and they really think all of that stuff's real. They think that I don't know what it's called, they've been about all kinds of silly names, genocidal molestation, insurrection, like, there are all these names that they've tried to paint the protest as to make it horrible. And yeah, by what no means am I on the side of knucklehead conservatives who think that they can make the government a little bit better and, maybe not small, maybe a little smaller, but just doing the things it should, like going overseas and killing people and having way more cops on the street, longer prison sentences for smoking weed or whatever. Like everybody thinks they have their perfect correct perspectives, and I'm probably biased and wrong about a bunch of mine. But now I've been reminded to pay attention to what other people are thinking as well. They probably have very different sources of information than I do.